Did you know there are 5 very subtle ways that you can influence virtually anyone, and most of them happen unconsciously? My name is Dave Durand, and that's what I do. I help people master influence. I've studied for decades. I was certified more than 30 years ago in neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP, and hypnotherapy, dubious certifications there. Most of those I've actually dropped the ideas of because I've learned something else even more powerful, which in the videos you'll recognize as I teach influence. Make sure that when you subscribe today, you hit notifications because you're going to get all sorts of information about influence. So let's get into those 5. And by the way, I'm going to tell you the 5th one is probably going to surprise you. Let's begin. The first one is the mystery of silence. So you're in a room and there's somebody that comes into the room that wants to influence others, and other people in that room also want to be influential. They're all trying to persuade the group and other individuals within the group to kind of see it their way. And there's one person in the group that remains silent. What happens is eventually those people who are speaking, when that person seems at least interested and active and curious, but silent, they turn to that person and they say, Bob, Alan, Katie, whoever it happens to be, I'm interested in your opinion. What do you think of this? Now, what's really interesting is that automatically they've elevated the power and authority they have in the room to influence others. Why? Because advice and persuasion not asked for is less powerful than advice or persuasion asked for. Tell me what you think. Convince me. What is your opinion? When you ask that question, you're opening up a part of your mind that is more receptive than if you don't open it up and people are advising you. And we know this, by the way, naturally. If you say to somebody, hey, I'm looking for some advice, and you're very open, they're going to give you that advice. If somebody just comes up and says, hey, I want to give you random advice, you might even close your mind because you say, well, I don't know about you. I don't care. That's not important to me. And you're not as inclined to listen. The second thing can be summarized by the very simple statement, tell me more. Now, why is this? When you want to influence somebody, or somebody wants to influence you, it's very important to do 2 things principally. 1, don't just be stuck on the idea that you must be the influencer and that you should be closed-minded to being influenced. This is a very bad idea, and a lot of people look at influence this way. I must influence over that person. But if you have the idea that you're going to both be influenced to the truth or to the best idea, you're going to do much better. In business, I always say that most people would rather be right to their own demise than wrong to their own prosperity, and pride gets in the way. So if you're actually seeking to influence somebody positively or to be receptive to their influence in a positive way, you're going to ask this question, tell me more. When a person tells them more, you can be open-minded to the idea that they might have a better idea. Now, I will also tell you that oftentimes a small concession in a discussion or a conversation, or sometimes an argument, where you say, tell me more, disarms a person. And it allows for them to actually give you additional information, which you may find useful, by the way. And if you affirm that useful information, you've built a bigger bridge. And believe it or not, even though you were the one influenced by that moment, they will be more influenced by you because your rapport is building at a different level, and they find you to be reasonable and even smart. The more that happens, the more likely are they to receive other ideas. Now, this is different when you're talking with a person who's a narcissist or has some sort of a, neurosis. But when you're talking to a normal person, it actually does work effectively. Tell me more. Now, let's say they're trying to influence you on something that you don't want to be influenced by, or it's a bad idea, or they're trying to manipulate you in a way. When you say, tell me more, you're actually asking them to give you their game plan, and eventually they will reveal themselves. Once they reveal themselves, you can kind of make a statement that you recognize that you have this revelation that they are actually, trying to manipulate you, and you would say it's simply something like, it would appear to me, although I could be wrong about this, that you're really trying to make me do something or get me to do something that isn't really in my best interest. Is that correct? Now, what happens is that throws them a little bit off their game if they're a manipulator. But if they're a normal person, they might just become self-aware and say, I guess maybe I am doing that. And now you get back to a reasonable part of the conversation. But tell me more reveals more of what they're trying to do. The next thing is to lend trust first. So what do I mean by this? In virtually every form of influence, the more trusted you are, the more influential you are. I talk about 3 different aspects of influence. There's the being, who you are. In other words, if a person comes in with a lot of experience, a lot of history, a lot of knowledge, they have a look of credibility, their being is so strong, they don't have to do a whole lot of techniques to influence you. You're just going to be influenced. Then there's the doing. Those are the techniques. A lot of salespeople use a lot of doings. And then the perceivings. The perceiving is, I am trying to perceive what's happening with you in order to influence you. And so you have to be, do, and perceive to be effective. The interesting thing is that trust plays a big role in this. When you trust a person, you trust them because of their being. It's why children trust parents too. I mean, they said something, and so I trust them because they're my parents, especially when they're very little. The doing or the tactics still happen for a parent who should be trusted because they know that there are certain ways you can say things to a child to get them to do things, and they're also reading their children. But the reason trust is super important in adult conversations or any conversation or a business setting is because people are not inclined to immediately trust, especially when money has to flow. So they're looking for reasons not to trust. So if you say something like, well, I trust that you would, or you seem like the type of person that I could trust. Something in their mind says, this person's smart because they recognize I'm trustable. Additionally, they're probably trustworthy because trustworthy people recognize my trustworthiness. And those two very simple things, the very fact that they think you're smarter and that you have good judgment, makes them to feel the same about you. But somebody usually has to go first. And sometimes it's just as simple as saying it out loud. You know what? I want you to know I trust you. And here are the reasons why that I trust you. And you'll notice that like this wall starts to get knocked down, and they will reciprocate that trust even if they don't say it out loud. And it allows you to move forward in whatever objectives that you have in the discussions that you have to influence that person. Now, the next one is it's a very, very important one. And I think that it's going to become kind of brilliant in your mind. And I don't mean like I'm saying something brilliant, but like it will be brilliant like a light is brilliant. You'll see it clearly. When you enter a discussion with most people, they have insecurities, but you're thinking about your own insecurities. You go into a job interview, and maybe they really want you as a candidate, so they're nervous. Is this person going to want the job? But you really want the job, so you're nervous. They want to know, am I making a good impression? You're wanting to know the same thing too. This happens on first dates all the time. It happens when you meet the in-laws or whoever it might be. Most people are thinking insecure thoughts themselves. Here you have 50 people gathered to go to a party, and every one of them, when they're getting ready to go to the party, is saying, well, should I wear this or should I wear that? I don't want them to think this. I don't want them to think that. Should I be on time? Not on time. A little bit late? What should we arrive in? Who should I go with? Well, what's funny is you're thinking so much about those things, forgetting that virtually everybody else going to the party is also thinking about them, which means they don't have time to think about what you're doing. Most people care way more about themselves than they care about you. So if you enter into any dialogue asking yourself, what is it that this person is insecure about? What is it that this person wants me to feel or notice about them? And if you do recognize these things and you can affirm them with that person, you're going to have a lot of influence over them because they're going to say, I like this person, I trust this person has a certain amount of intellect, they know me, I can connect with that person. Whenever we are influenced by another person, there's a connection that is there that we feel and that we want to give that connection. We actually feel like, hey, you know what? I'm very open to this person because of who they are. Now, it's really important when we think about these 4 things that I've mentioned is that they should not be used in a manipulation for poor gain. In other words, they should only be used for the gain of good. When you're working with people, if you truly want to be influential, you need to use integrity or integrity-based influence and virtue in order to do that, not vice. Now, this is something that I think is important to mention because you can use any one of these techniques to manipulate somebody into behaviors that are not good for them. And that would make you, in essence, a narcissist. So I would advise that you don't do it that way. But let's get to that 5th one, which is the most surprising of all, because it's also the one that right now you might feel a little behind on. But if you really want to influence people, especially at an unconscious level, get in shape. See, one of the things that people recognize about others is whether or not they have discipline. And a disciplined person is a person that we want to listen to more. There are a lot of studies that show that when you see a person who is fit, They have something to offer you. They can protect you. They can provide knowledge to you. They have self-control, so they're going to be safe to be around. Now, this is not always true about everybody, and there are some people who have the appearance of fit that are actually not fit. And we all know people in our lives that may not have the best fitness level, but they're very influential to us. So if you look at this at a wholesale level, it's a bad idea. And if you look at it as a means of guilting a person into getting into better shape because somebody's trying to say, particularly an expert online, that you're not influential if you're not in shape. No, what I'm trying to say is that you've increased your advantage when you are put together because of the unconscious things it says about people. And we do know this to be naturally true. This is why, generally speaking, models are chosen to do certain things and to influence people because we have a feeling that they have something to offer. When there are studies done with little kids and you say, who's smarter? Is it the prettier or not so pretty teacher? They happen to think it's the prettier one. Who's the nicer one? It's the prettier one, and oftentimes this doesn't have to do with really all natural beauty as much as it has to do with the way a person has carried themselves because they do take care of themselves. So that fitness factor is something that we recognize. So again, the mystery of silence, tell me more, lend trust first, make sure that you recognize that most people are more insecure than you are in the moment, and get in shape. You're going to influence more people. Tell me what you think, by the way, when it comes to these ideas. And make sure that when you do subscribe, you hit notifications so you can stay up to speed on all ways that you can master your own influence.